This morning we are at Tang Fam's. This is this man right here is the epitome
legend.
of branding.
Branded Myth.
Modern day Steve Jobs in Tampa Bay.
Minus the death.
Yeah. That's great.
And the iPhone. Nah, man, I'm super excited. All kidding aside, my boy Tang is a longtime friend. I've known Tang. How long have I known you, bro?
Probably like 13 years.
13
maybe?
years,
13,
bro.
14 years. Yeah.
13 years. That's a long time,
It's
dude.
a long time.
Yeah.
So just quick context. When I first came to church, I don't think I ever met you before church, right? No, I didn't.
No.
No, I didn't. But when I first came and got saved and I met Jesus, when I walked to the front, it was my boy Tang laying hands on me, praying for me.
Like
Yeah.
punching you? Oh, okay. Praying for
No,
you.
I
I was
prayed
like,
for him.
do you remember
Yeah.
who else was there?
Yeah,
Who else
my
prayed?
boy Miguel was there.
Miguel, yeah.
Miguel invited him.
Of course Miguel was
This
there,
is
yeah.
how
Yeah.
it went down. We had a prep meeting before church even started. Miguel was like, "Yo, I'm inviting my boy." A lot. We couldn't even say his name at that time. Alejandro. And I'm like, "Okay, cool. What's the plan? What's the move?" He's like, "Look, I'm gonna invite him front, and we're gonna pray for him." I'm like, "Bro, easy."
Done.
That's what Christians do, right? Like if you have a friend being invited to church,
Gotta
you're
get
like,
this man-
So
get this man
rule
saved.
number one, when there's a new person to church, we know the rules, right?
Yeah.
Don't be weird. Am I right or am I wrong? Like, guys, do not be weird. You know what I mean?
Don't talk about the blood making you white as snow.
Bro,
of
there's
course you have freaking your friend speaking in tongues in the middle of
yeah. So I look at Christian, bro. Christian, leave your goat at home.
Put the snakes in the basket. We're not bringing them
Yeah.
out.
But he came in a tank top.
Oh wow.
Came in a tank
Bro,
top.
you guys always remember that wrong. The first time wasn't in the tank top. The tank top was the overnight.
That was your brand.
Yeah, that was my
the
brand.
He didn't come in a tank top until he realized there was
There were some
actually
girls, I
cute
bet.
girls
Oh
at church.
yeah.
No, bro.
I wouldn't put that past
There
him.
wasn't one girl at that church I was interested in.
Yeah.
Not one.
Because you weren't saved. He was looking for the wrong things. That's the problem.
Well, I didn't know. The funny thing is, I didn't know it was inappropriate to
Yeah.
wear a tank top at church,
I mean, it's really not inappropriate. It's just apparently it is.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Those
anyway, they've always
unspoken
made
rules.
fun of me for the tank
Those,
top.
those
but-
unspoken rules,
yeah.
unspoken rules.
But it was cool, bro. So I walk up. My boys at the time, well, they weren't my boys, but they pray for me. It was actually a pretty supernatural experience the first time. I remember they were praying for me, bro. And I don't think I've told you this, but I felt my entire body like burn, dude.
Come on.
Like burning when you guys were praying for me. And it felt like just like sin leaving my body. I was like drenched in sweat at the end. But a few days after, we get connected. Well, I was going to USF at the time. And then Tang and Rob share a birthday, October 14th.
Yeah.
Right. And they were wanting to go watch a fight with Miguel, and then they went and picked me up from USF, and I think that's the night where we were like,
This is
All
it.
right,
This
yeah.
is where it starts.
yeah, and that was
Yeah.
the start. At least for me, that was the start.
I mean, rewind to the moment that you, I guess, accepted Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
Was that the moment that you're like, yo, I am going to live my life for Christ? Or was that something that like...
That was my. I wouldn't say it was my. I am living my life for Christ. That was my moment of giving up. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I don't know that I had decided I was gonna live for Him. Maybe it's simultaneous. Maybe it was the same thing. But for me, it was like I'm gonna stop running.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah, I remember that moment for me too.
how long? When was that, bro?
I started going to church for the girls, right?
That's what most
For the
guys do.
Yeah, that's how
Yep.
God baited me in. He was
God's like, hey, look at these pretty mamas over here.
yeah. So, I prepped before. I highlighted everything in the Bible.
Did a couple push-ups probably.
And then let everyone know I read. I read
Did you
this
really?
book.
Highlight everything.
Yeah, I highlighted the whole
Everything,
book.
yeah.
Everything was
Couple
everything
different
was
highlight
highlighted.
colors, so it looks like
yes,
I
I colored that book, and I came to church, and I didn't accept Jesus until I would say 6 months in. I was very I was.
So
very
you went to church for
stubborn.
6 months before you accepted
It
Christ?
was about 6 months, right? And I remember one night after a party, I went to the McDonald's and I was hanging out with this girl, and she was asking me like, "Oh yeah, like what church do you go to?" I'm like, "I go to this church, CCH." And she was like, "Cool, I need to go." And I'm like, "That's what's up. You should." And she's like, "Why?" And I'm like, "Because God changes you." And she's like, "Really?"
Ooh.
And I'm like, so I looked at her face and I was like, "Look, I'm gonna stop partying forever, and I'm gonna give my life to God in this moment, in this car." And I remember taking her back, dropping her off at her car, and that was the moment where I realized that I had to be real with myself and with God, because I knew God was real, but I think I was living that double
James,
life.
right?
Yeah. So I decided to just started to live what I highlighted. You know, so
Dang, bro, you like preached it, and she's like, "You're not living it."
yeah.
Well, so I was
But she
going to
didn't
ask you.
say
I was
it,
about
but
to say,
she's
did
like,
she say
"Really?
anything?
Really?
She's like, "Really?" And I'm like, so this is.
She said so much with one word, dude.
Yeah, she
But
said,
isn't-
"Really?"
Wow.
Yeah.
It was where the
Can I tell you who it was?
Who was it?
It was Jade.
Jade. She went to East Bay, right?
It was this girl named Jade, went to East Bay. Yeah,
Wow.
we're still friends to this day. And I invited her. And all her friends to church.
Jade date one of your guy friends or no?
Yeah. Gene. You remember Gene Randall? They were dating.
No, I don't remember.
But yeah, so
Wow, that's crazy, bro. So you gave your life to Jesus in a car with somebody that didn't know Jesus.
yeah.
But it was actually, it sounded like it was a moment where the Holy Spirit began to convict you in the moment of talking about him. That's so
Yeah.
fascinating, bro.
Yeah.
I've never met someone
Yeah.
where as
Yeah,
they
that's
were
crazy.
actually
That's a
sharing
crazy story.
they're sharing the gospel, the goodness of God that they've been hearing, and then it was like, oh, wait, oh
So-
crap.
So your story, Miguel and I brought you to church. For me, I led myself to Jesus.
You didn't need nobody. Just
Oh,
joking.
you know what I'm saying? Blind leading the blind, baby.
Well, no, it's cool. What you're saying is cool because I was actually reading James the past 2 days, and it talks about how, you know, a lot of people say they believe, and James says even the demons believe, you know, and they tremble at the name of God. And it says if you have faith but you have no works, it's like having a body without breath.
That's so good.
Like it has
Yeah.
no life, you know.
Yep.
So that's really cool that like Jade mentioned something and it helped you realize like
Yeah.
you had faith but no works.
Let me add on to that, and I agree 100%. Obviously, it's the Bible. I can't disagree that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, go
I mean, you could.
So, you know what it was, and I guess I'm having an epiphany now. The reason why I didn't want to put my faith in God wasn't because I didn't believe in God. It was because faith comes at a cost. Right?
Come on.
There is a sacrifice of who you once were, what you believed, what you, you know, like 20 years of what you thought life was supposed to be. All of that goes in the trash when you believe in something else.
Yeah.
And, you know, so I realized in that moment that if I believed in God, then the old Tang had to die. And that's why I guess I waited so long. And it's funny, bro. Like anything, right? Anything you put your faith in, something has to die. Your belief
Yeah,
dies.
sure. Yep.
Whatever it is. So
Your identity, your
identity.
Yeah, your convictions have to
Correct.
die.
There's a story. You remember that story about Francis Chan? He preached this sermon. I don't think he actually has a sermon online, but he said this. He asked everybody in the crowd. He had a BB gun, and he asked everybody in the crowd. And he says, "How many of y'all believe that I can hit this cup from like 10 feet?" Everybody in the crowd raised their hand, and then he moves it further, and he says, "How many of y'all believe I can hit it?" Still, 95% believe that he can hit that cup. Then he said, "How many of y'all believe I can hit it now?" And it's like really far out. And I would say 75, 80% raise their hand. He says, "Okay, cool. 75% of y'all, right, believe that I can hit this cup." And he says, "If you believe, I want you to come up and hold this cup." Right? How many of y'all believe I can hit it now? And nobody raised their hand. And it's because they realize now there's a cost to it.
To your
Right.
faith. Ooh.
There's
Come
a
on,
cost
come
to
on,
it.
come
so, He says, we will believe all day until we realize there's a cost,
Right.
right? And
Yeah.
then,
Yep. Absolutely.
so when it comes to faith, that's what I believe. And the reason why I never actually jumped the gun was because
Because you needed to die.
I needed to die to what I believed.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, I think, I don't know what you think, but it feels like a very literal death, you
It
know,
is.
because other than your body, you are really just everything you think and you
Yes.
desire.
Yes.
That's what you really are on this earth. Like other than like just the physical, you are
100%.
and so like that I think that is what and you know what's so crazy, bro? The people that say faith doesn't cost something and the people that subscribe to it, I still believe that there's a deep part of your heart that lets you know it still doesn't make sense. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I would even challenge the fact, do they even have faith? Personally, do they
Yeah.
actually have faith in whatever it is if they don't realize that it has costed them something?
Yeah.
It's whether it's your time, whether it's your belief, whether it's your thought process, whatever it might be. Like no matter where you go, no matter what you do, no matter what religion you may follow, everything costs something, some version of your life, like you said, Tang. And in reality, I feel like the danger of Christianity sometimes is we simplify the cost of raising your hand and saying a prayer in church. And that's your cost, right? And even the cost of, like, we're not going to fully embarrass you. Like, hey, like this is a decision between you and God, which there's a lot of truth to that, absolutely. But I feel like the danger of it, if we don't clarify that there's a moment of decision between you and God,
Yeah.
but then there's actually a moment of this is going to cost you more than just you lifting your hand while everyone's eyes are closed.
Yeah.
Like-
listen, like what we believe now, and I'll be honest with you guys. What we believe is foolish.
Yeah.
It is foolish.
Yeah.
Foolish to the
think
world,
about it.
absolutely.
Think about it. Like
Absolutely.
a woman, a virgin, got pregnant, gave birth, right? Gave birth. If somebody comes up to you, so like you know what I'm saying, like if your daughter,
Yeah.
right, 25
Right.
years old,
Right.
hey, I'm pregnant.
Right.
You're like, you know, like okay, with who? Oh, God.
The Lord.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Who's the guy?
Right.
You know, so
Think of
and-
Mary. Mary's exactly in that. You see
Yeah.
Joseph's response. He's like,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
then God like shows him to Joseph.
And-
It was me, bro.
Yeah.
He's like, oh,
so
okay.
so I mean it's foolish. So imagine
absolutely.
giving up logic, giving up everything, like everything that you've ever believed, and said, okay, well, this virgin gave birth to this God-like man who saved the world by dying and humbling himself. That sounds weak, sounds foolish, but that's the belief that we believe, and we walk around, we preach this.
What's so profound about that, bro, is that, you know, I feel like logic gets so idolized and put up, right? Like, oh, you give up logic to believe in Christianity, but I have experienced, and I don't know if you feel the same way about like Jesus dying on the cross, and just let's actually make it even more simple, like the forgiveness of sin, like your shortcomings in this life, and needing that peace with whatever justice the universe has, which we call God, of course. I find it that conviction in that inner war is more real than logic itself. Does that make sense? It's like, because logic is our own construct, right? Like, you know, it's logical that you're always gonna pull towards what benefits you the most in our relationship. That's logical.
Yeah.
It's illogical that you would do something different. But that like lets you know that logic itself is a construct that we make up, and we use
So
it.
good.
We use it
Yeah.
to devalue
Come on.
Christianity.
Come on.
But at the very core, and it's actually still the same truth. Like what you're saying is
Yeah.
actually biblical.
Yeah.
It's foolishness. Like what we believe confounds the wise of the
Yes.
world.
Yes.
But it's not because it's less. It's not because it's less logical.
Yeah.
It's because the wisdom of the world is in itself prideful, and so this is the kind of wisdom that requires another level of humility.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So for example, when you are aware of your sin finally, and you need forgiveness, that desire for forgiveness supersedes every part of your logic. Like everybody needs that.
Yeah, that's what makes sense to me.
Exactly.
You get what I mean? Like
That's what makes sense to me. I love that.
everything that's biblical, right? Everything that's in the Bible. I mean, giants, right? We hear about
Yep.
weird things in the Bible, and if I sit down and break down like Revelations, and we hear all these things, and we're like, man, all of that comes together for one purpose, and it's forgiveness
That's it.
of who we once were and what we've done, what
Yep.
Adam and Eve
Yep.
did.
Yep.
And all of it revolves around that, and it's insane. And this greatest sacrifice, Jesus, right? That's why we were forgiven. That was the cost, and it makes sense. And I cannot. It's hard for me to explain that to anybody, and that's what I always go to. Is that
Yeah.
it's
Because that supersedes logic, right?
it's
like,
super seasonal. Yep.
because regardless of where you are listening to this podcast or whoever you meet on the street, there's one thing that remains true, and that is that you know deep inside that there's a right way, and you haven't followed it.
Well, the Word of God says that inside of man, eternity, the longing for eternity, is inside of every man, and that the longing of that, like the idea behind why does humanity continue to look for the meaning of life and eternity, like where they could live forever?
Yeah.
Why are the richest people looking for the meaning of life? They have, which we thought money was the meaning of life. A lot of people that are inside the world that are outside of Jesus, they think the more money, they'll have everything they need, right?
Yeah.
And then in reality, more people continue to. Why are they traveling space? Like, dude, you got everything here on this planet. Why are you trying to go somewhere else? It's because the longing continues. They're longing for more. And then, there's so many, funny things around people trying to implant their consciousness into AI, or to where they could continue to go farther and, I'm going to live until I'm 200 because I take 17 bone broth vitamins, like all of these things. But it's like, so we continue to have the longing for eternity and the meaning of life. Yet both of those are answered in one person.
Well, and I will go a step further and say, I don't want eternal life without peace.
So what's peace?
Because that's something else that like we don't talk about. And I could ask you guys this question, because you are two people that have experienced this. Does having resources actually bring you peace?
It may bring an earthly peace at a slight level, but you know what's funny? I heard a pastor say this once, which was really funny.
Yes, resources do bring you peace.
Talk to me about it.
I mean, it does. It does. I mean, think about it. Obviously, materialistic things do bring some sense of calmness and peace. But I mean, when you think of God as the provider, right? What is it that you're saying? He is my resource, right? So resources do bring peace because we lack, right? Whether it's materialistic things or intimacy, connection. Those are, and when you talk about resource, are you talking about materialistic things?
That's what I meant, but
yeah,
actually
yeah.
like the direction
Yeah,
you went,
yeah.
because I think there's a distinction you're getting to.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that the reason why we don't have peace we lack. We live this whole life working and laboring and connecting and doing all these things because we live in lack, right? And that's why we don't have peace.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I mean, I can disrupt everybody's peace immediately by saying, hey, like, you don't have money for next month's rent. Immediately, you will lose peace.
Now,
Most people do.
Would you consider that peace that you're feeling within money? Would you consider that a natural peace or a supernatural peace? Because there's moments that, I know people that are in poverty financially, so they don't
Yeah.
have peace financially, but they have peace supernaturally, where they're like,
Yeah.
yeah, but God's going to take care of me.
Yep.
Our family's okay.
Yeah.
And so would you say
that
that
like that contentment world is like it's
contentment.
crazy.
So would you differentiate contentment and peace? Would you say those are two different things?
Yeah. I would say so. Would you agree?
Yeah. I think because this is a thing. Like as a person that like chases, like, let's say money, for example, because that's where the conversation started about, like, people wanted eternal life, and what was the other one?
Oh, just eternal life and meaning of life.
And no, you
And
said
meaning of life. Like why are we alive? Meaning of life and eternal life. That's kind of where we were at. That I was talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I was just like, I forget the rest, but what I was said was that I wouldn't want eternal life if I don't have peace.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like the biggest torture you could have, in my opinion, is to have forever, but not be well. You know what I'm saying? I'd rather live a short time well than an eternal life unwell. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like the reason why I was saying that is because the what I see on the earth and we were talking the source was like what makes sense, right? Like I don't think you can understand that the pursuits of this life don't bring peace until you achieve them and you don't have peace, right? Like you have achieved things on this earth. You have achieved things on this earth. I have achieved things on this earth far less than a lot of other people. And also far more than a lot of other people. And I have found, and I think you guys have found too, that in the achieving, it's not the achieving itself that brings you peace. And that's something else about like what Jesus, like just the what Jesus gives us, and like that supersedes logic, right? That it makes just I love the way you said it. That's what makes sense to me, right? It's like that the peace that God gives is far beyond anything we can achieve on this earth. And you don't know that until you have it. I'll ask you this question, Tank. You are in relationship with a lot of people that don't know Jesus, right? This is a good question, I think. What do you see a lot of in the people that live away from Christ? Do you see some characteristics about their well-being?
Great question. Great question. Okay, so I would say this. I see consistency.
Okay.
Because when I say consistency, I'm talking about this constant need to fill some sort of void.
Yeah.
Right? So
Wow.
we have weekends, and weekends are for weekends, right? It's for doing things to fill a void. At the end of the day, that's the whole point, right? It's a difference between when you're going out and celebrating like a milestone and or you're going out to fill a void.
Wow.
And I think that when I meet people that is outside of Christ or in other realms, other religion, whatever, I see consistency in constantly going out to fill some sort of void.
Yeah. Some type of emptiness.
Yeah.
So good.
And it's that story of Jesus, like when he meets the Samaritan at the well. Why are you here? Right? Oh, I want water. It's like, but I have eternal water.
Yeah.
You know, so the difference between us is that the reason why we don't go out and do the things of the world is because we don't need to.
It's not. It's sometimes some people might look at us and say we're constraining ourselves.
Yeah.
Like we really want to.
Yeah.
Like Christians really want to go and do the same things. And
Like that meme I showed you.
like that meme you showed me.
Like there's this overwhelming desire. I'm sweating. I can't do this. But right. When
But
in
at
reality,
the
it's
start,
the
that's the
hunger.
case.
Yeah.
At the start, that's the case, right? When you first get saved,
Oh, yeah.
you do want to do those things because you still have that, you know. But
Would you consider that because you're still in the beginning young love with the Lord? Because that's how I pictured it. You know, when you start having a crush, right?
Yeah.
Like I remember when I just started crushing my wife, right? Before she was my wife. Like I started to be like, man, like, okay, man, she's got all these little pictures. I should kind of start closing tabs on the thought of these other people that they might be. You know? And so you almost start like, click, okay, close that one. No, she doesn't check X. Like that one, I'm gonna close that tab in my mind, right? And you start checking off boxes. It's almost whenever you start following the Jesus, you start closing tabs of like, dang, pornography continues to make me feel, I gotta close that tab. That thing has this addiction in me, right? Oh, well, this drug, man, why am I addicted to pain drugs? Like, because, well, I got injured and you start closing these tabs and you're like, man, this is just, money continues to, no matter how much I have, it brought earthly peace, but it brought spiritual, like, just emptiness. So no matter how much I have of that, it's not satisfying. Okay, close that tab. And you start like almost closing tabs or partying. You know, you're like that moment when you're at the party, you're like, well, wait a minute, like something's gotta change. You like close the tabs, right?
I saw this video. I got to reference. I saw this video of this guy. He's in the middle of like a bunch of people. He's like standing in the middle and he's like has a face. Yeah.
He's like, He's like, he's in the party, and this is the moment you realize that
I told you better things.
God had better things for you, and you're just like,
You're like, ooh.
Everybody around is like,
Yeah.
and he's like,
Yeah, 100%. 100%. And that's what I feel like when you begin to follow Jesus, like genuinely, like truly following the way, because that's the cost that I believe in that car. Like if I look back at your car, I'm like, it was the moment, like you said, that you realized that there was a cost and it cost you everything.
Yeah.
And that in that cost, it was like, wow, I need to completely change my life. I need to change how I talk, how I move, not go to parties, whatever it might be. And it was like a closing of a tap. Like, man, wait a minute, I need to change. You know?
I think it's okay to go to parties. Like I think a lot of non-Christians think like, oh man, we don't party. I'm like, bro, all I do is party. This for me is party.
My entire life.
Right? It's celebrating. It's
good.
If you look at Jewish religion, like I go to a Jewish wedding,
Dude,
Yeah, bro.
that
celebrate,
fully believe in
celebrate.
Jesus. Like
Come on.
it is
Yep.
like the officiant was such a G. I'll tell you this, man. This guy we're gonna drink in celebration of this newlyweds. Everyone's like, let's go. Everyone had a cup. Pulled out a cup out of nowhere, made out of crystal. I'm like, dang, bro.
I got my crystal
they
cup.
fill up their cups, right? Overflow. The officiant's like, well, no, keep pouring. They're like, yo, it's the groom's hand is drenched in champagne, right? Keep pouring. I'm like, dang, bro, overflow. He drinks it, and then the officiant says, run it back. Bro, and it was a celebration, and that's what they celebrated. They celebrated union. It is beauty, right? So I think the world, they don't sell. They do it to fill a void. It's a difference. It's a difference intention. When you walk in, you're celebrating. You think back, man, you remember that time when we had that birthday party and Rob did this or they did this? Like it's core memories that bring joy, that God created unity.
yeah.
It's we only celebrate. You can't celebrate by yourself.
Right.
Unity
Come on.
is what comes out of celebration, or you know. So, but I want to kind of touch bases on what you said about like this consistent lack. Like this goes back to like lack and like these worldly desires and stuff. And I'm having an epiphany, and I'm thinking about it now. And if you look at New Testament, when Jesus came, he fulfilled three things, right? He filled our life with three things, right? And it's what we all desire most, right? So would you sacrifice partying for food? Of course.
Most days, yeah.
Yeah, like imagine going years without, I mean,
Yeah.
months or days
Yeah.
without, years, can you be dead? Days without eating, right? So when you look at these third
Yeah.
world countries, why are
Yep.
they happy? Because they're fulfilled. They have food every day.
Come on.
They have water every day,
Yep.
and they can breathe.
Yep.
And that's what Jesus gave us. So when you think about this, when Jesus came to earth, he said three things, right? He said to the woman at the well, what did she want? Water. What did Jesus say?
I am the living water.
I am water. Right? And then when everybody, the multitude
Yep.
wanted food,
Yep.
they wanted bread.
Yep.
What did Jesus say?
I'm the bread of life.
I'm the
I am bread.
And you shall not live.
And then when Mary and Martha, what did they want when their brother died?
Life.
Life. And what did Jesus say?
I am the way, the truth, and the life.
I am the resurrection. I am the life. So he comes and he says these things that we all desire. He says he is what we need.
Come on.
He is the only person in historically
Yeah.
that's ever called himself the thing we need,
Yeah. I 100%. So
which is so
Which
daring.
then goes back to the Old Testament in Exodus when the Lord says, I am. I am.
yeah.
Like when he is talking to him at the burning bush moment, I am. Like, well, who do I say? Who do I say has sent me?
Yeah.
I am.
and it's easy to tell who has I am and who doesn't.
So listen to this.
100%.
So let's take this and let's bring it to modern day, right? You're a newlywed and you have rent due at the end of this month. You know what Jesus says? You know what Jesus says to them?
What does he say?
I am rent money. Right? That's what Jesus. I am rent money.
Provider.
Right? You don't have a job. I am job. That's what Jesus is saying when he's saying, I am what you need.
Come on.
And that's the beauty. Like we lack in this world, and Jesus comes and says, I'm here to fulfill all of it.
I want to ask you a question, bro.
Yeah.
About so you said consistency to fill a lack. What do you? Because the world changes so quickly right now, bro. It's so insane how quickly it changes. We're in the age of AI right now. Just like things are just moving so fast. I feel like a lot of the things that I used to fill my lack with are probably very similar to the things that people fill their lack with. But I bet there are other new things as well. And obviously, you remember your life before. What does that look like? Like, do you see that people run to the same things you run to, or is it at its core pretty much the same thing, or what are you seeing?
Now, people that they desire success. We see more men and women putting success and business before marriage, right? Before relationships. Intimacy. It's crazy. I will say this, and I don't know if you guys would agree. I would say the greatest desire is intimacy.
Yep.
But it's also the greatest fear is intimacy.
Right. Because it's into me you see.
Yeah. So I want intimacy, but I don't want intimacy, and this is how people live, and it's crazy. Like, it's funny, bro, because. And I'm dating now, right? So I'm dating and I'm meeting new people, and I've always wanted, like, what is all this? Like, what is the point of all this? We live in a generation that don't want commitment, but long and desire connection. And
It's so weird, right? Like, how can you have true connection if you don't have commitment? And so, bro, that's actually the next episode I want to talk to you about. We won't hit it now.
Okay.
But I want to talk to you in the next episode. I want to talk about dating in the modern day as a Christian and just what that looks like out there.
Yeah.
And we'll talk a little bit about just like life and, all that stuff.
Yeah. Let me just finish the whole intimacy thing. I went off track on that.
Yeah.
I love it. You took my brain into another spot. I've been able to get back to it.
So going
Land
back
the plane
to what,
here.
what
Land the plane
yeah,
here
I know,
with
I am.
intimacy.
So going back to what you're saying, what the world wants is they want intimacy, but they're scared because we're dealing with broken people, right? So you see people hanging out with people, and they're like, I don't trust this person. I don't want to connect with this person. There's that, right? And I think when I talk to people, when they meet me and they hang out with me, there's a sense of intimacy, a vulnerability that I give, and they're like attracted to that, right? Like, I am broken. I do things that I think people wouldn't share, but I share everything. I open up my life, and I said, and I'm vulnerable.
Yeah.
And people are like, what is this? So when I meet people, that's what they all want. They want connection. They want intimacy. And when they meet somebody who's been forgiven, it's life changing. So, it's life changing. And at the end of the day, what is it? What is it that we all want? And it's throughout history. We all want connection. We all want intimacy. We want this. Why are we on social media consistently? Why are people having sex? Why are people getting into relationships? Why are people partying and drinking and doing all this? All for one thing. Either they're running away from intimacy or they're chasing intimacy. Right? So that's consistent.
Yeah.
And they want to get close enough that they get the benefit, but far away enough that they can not reveal who they really are.
Which leads back to the exact statement that you said in the very beginning, the cost.
Yeah.
It's the cost that we long for intimacy, but we're unwilling to take on the cost of intimacy, because the cost of intimacy is vulnerability.
It's commitment.
It's commitment, it's vulnerability, like all of that. Like everything that we do, if I connect with any person, it costs me being willing to have that person hurt me, no matter what it is. I have to allow Tang to have the opportunity to say something that I don't like, or that it may hurt my feelings, right? No matter what it is. Any relationship, friendship, bossship, whatever it is, like you continue to hit the layers of wherever you are of the intimacy scale with a person. Some people will be like, well, they're just my boss, nothing more. They're just an acquaintance, nothing more. They're just this, nothing more. But then they get frustrated when they're not invited to that dinner party.
Yeah.
It's like, well, it's because they're only acquaintance to you. If you won't allow, it goes back to pastors, it goes back to shepherds, if your counselor, goes back to counselors, teachers, educators, whatever it is, you're going to get out, but what you're willing to sacrifice. what
So
you're
good.
willing to allow.
So I'll and now we can close with this. And I want to add on to that. And I love what you said because that's what relationships is all about. It's about sacrifice. We live in a day and age where we see relationships as investments, right? When you invest in something, what do you want?
I want to
Something back.
return.
I want
a
to
return. Selfish. Yeah.
But that's not relationships,
on.
right?
Come on.
Love is
So good, Tang.
sacrificial. So when I invest
So
in
good.
Alejo, I want something back.
So good.
But when I sacrifice my time to come serve and help him move and help him do this, there's no expectation. And nobody wants to do that.
No.
Nobody wants to
It's
sacrifice.
expectation. Ah, bro.
You
The
know?
expectation
we wanna,
of the return.
We want
so
to
good.
invest. We invest in stocks. We invest
Right.
in anything. Everything. I want to invest my time wisely.
Yeah.
No, sacrifice your time
That's
and
good,
go
bro.
serve.
Yeah.
That's
Come
good.
on. Come
You
on.
know, and nobody wants to do that.
Come on.
I don't. Sacrifice, bro.
Which is
Nah.
why we're being renewed by Jesus every
You know.
single day.
Yeah.
Come on.
And,
So good.
and bro, listen,
So
you want to know what the craziest thing is? Jesus could have died at 70,
Absolutely.
but he died at his peak,
Yep.
33.
When everyone was following
You
him.
know,
Come
and
on. Come
and
on.
we are in our 30s, and we're like, it's time to make and choose wisely. I don't want to
Right.
sacrifice my 30 minutes, but Jesus sacrificed his life. He could've-
Everything.
There's so much, but no, we don't even want to sacrifice 5 minutes. My boy Jesus sacrificed his life for us at the peak,
all of his authority.
all of his time.
Dude, everything. This we go 900 hours on this one.
Yeah.
All of the authority, all of the he was in the word in the beginning, John 1, right? He was been in it all, and he chose also he could have chose now to come. He could chose now to
Yeah.
just to as simple as is to take a bullet to the head and be done.
Yeah,
But yet he chose to go at the most brutal time to die for us.
yeah,
To show how much he loves.
yeah.
So powerful, so powerful. We got to
Yeah,
land
just
it.
got-
We got to
yeah.
land it right now. Land it in.
No,
What we'll do.
I was just gonna say, like, as I talk to you, Tang, and I consider what people in the world receive from you, and what they should receive from Christians. I think that agape, I'm gonna love you because I'm gonna love you anyway. I think that that's like the most needed thing on the earth, you know, and it's probably the reason why people look at you or maybe your team, the people that work for you, or I joke with Tang because he always has a disciple. He always has another guy next to him, and
Come on.
depending on what season it is,
Yeah.
I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
the next guy, you know, like
Yeah.
you're always loving on somebody, and I love that about you, bro.
Yeah.
And
They start to look like me too.
Yeah,
Like they
it's
start
very
to get-
true. It's very true.
You know.
I'm not gonna lie. It's very true.
My wardrobe for like a good 2 years looked like half of it you gave to me.
That might be a
I still have pair of
difference.
shoes that
Might,
you- but it's super cool, bro, that you're living that out with people that really need it. And I know that even in this right now we're in Tank's office,
Yeah.
and here in this office, you know, this is where a lot of your ministry takes place, right? It's like you have a team, you have a business of people that need your love and your input, and you give that to them. And so we're honored to be here with you, bro.
Yeah.
Thank
And let's do another episode.
Yeah, man.
All right.
Thank you for the time.
Sounds good.
Deuces.
And it's a wrap, boys.
It's a wrap.
See you guys.